special needs are here because they're really kind and friendly, and I like playing with them and teaching them new stuff.
It's important for me to be in a mainstream classroom because I can actually fit in with the rest of the school. I can have more social life. I'm not just hanging with other disabled people.
Got lots of friends in this class. I have a wheelchair, but I sometimes prefer being out of it because then I can get more into it and get more included that way.
It's quite good to have disabled people at our school because we can be friends with them. They all feel a bit more comfortable, and they're quite cool when you are their friends because they're a bit different inside than what they look like.
I think if we did exclude them, it'd be a lot harder for them to learn, and they wouldn't make as many friends, and neither would we.
And I remember the appointment with the principal who said, "What's wrong with the special school up the road?" And my response to that was, his sister doesn't go there.
We're talking about the child being accepted, the parent being accepted on their very first day. Principal meets them, takes them to the classroom, and the classroom teacher locks the door.
When people don't believe that your son or daughter has the right to be at a school, then they behave in particular ways, and the young people know that, the children know that, and you feel that every day.
Parents come into a school with a lot of frustrations, a lot of feelings of sadness, grieving, disappointments, huge challenges. Is my child going to be accepted in this school? Are they going to be provided with a program that will suit their needs?
Just to walk around every morning with Jessie before school and have so many kids say hello to Jessie just blows me away. She's so included in the school, it's unbelievable, eh? And that's quite heartwarming.
This school is a cross-section of the community. We've got European, we've got Māori, we've got Chinese children, we've got very able, very bright children, and we also have children with special needs, and we're all part of this family, and the goal is to have every child learning and participating to the maximum of their abilities. When I was appointed as principal, there was a move at that time to consider inclusion, and we very quickly got into that concept and worked with families and staff to build an inclusive climate in the school. A principal has to work closely with their Board of Trustees and with their staff, so there needs to be discussion, there needs to be talk, there may need to bring other people in to talk through some of these issues that will start a ball rolling that will lead to a totally inclusive environment.
Tamati, which one? Seafood. Seafood, what sort?
There was lots of discussion and professional development and transparency in terms of the process, the needs of the students and how they would be best met in terms of an inclusive model. It was also made very clear to them what the expectations would be of them as teachers and what support the students would get.
It's about making them aware that they don't have to have a magic wand and try and solve all the problems. Secondly, they're not there to cure the disability. For one of our cases here, one of the teachers says, "How can we get him to stop doing that?" And I says, "Well, he does that because he has a disability. He will always do that. You're not here to cure it. Enjoy it." I think it's also about making them realise that there's a person there and that they actually can enjoy it and that it's fine to laugh and it's fine to joke with them, and at times that kid is going to say and do dumb stuff as any child will do, and it's okay to laugh.
We don't hope that inclusion will happen. We don't hope that the teachers will make an effort, that the children will be compassionate and tolerant and accept a child with special needs into their class. We expect it.
Good eating, Matt, good boy.
All our children are in their age-appropriate classes with their peers, and their needs are met from within that setting. So resourcing is put in place, be it because the child is individually funded as an all student, whether they're in moderate learning needs and they're funded through a special education grant that all schools get, whether they're funded through TIFIA or an outside agency such as ACC or GSE. The child's needs are met within the setting that they are in every day, just the same way as their peers.
Teachers are isolated and they often feel that it's up to them to solve the problems around that child. So the very first thing we need to do is build a whole support network around the child and around the teacher, so the teacher doesn't feel isolated.
Oh, I need support. I need people that have got way more experience to be able to talk to me and say, here's an idea that I've tried, maybe it didn't work for me, but it might work for you because we know the dynamics of your class. If you haven't, please go and get your homework because you need to do it tonight. Yep, you better grab it because Mum will want it. Oh, yeah. And have you got your communication? I need the principal to release me so that I can look at other teachers and see how they're doing it. It's just so I can see in a real context what happens.
Melania, what were you going to say?
I need to be able to vent. And I need to be able to say to somebody, this didn't work, and what do I do about it? And that's okay.
We acknowledge straight off that things are going to go wrong, problems are going to happen, but instead of apportioning blame, we sit down and problem solve and say, how can we do it better?
Good boy.
Teachers have got to feel well supported. The teacher who has a teaching role for an ORS-funded child is a critical person. The support staff who work with that child is a critical person, and the resources that are wrapped around the program are critical too. And if all of those things can come together, then the teacher can enjoy teaching children with special needs as part of their family, their classroom family.
The children with learning needs at our school, special needs children, don't belong to any one person, they belong to the whole school. And you'll often find that other teachers, the principal, other people that work around the school will support them in their learning, will take the time to see if they're reaching their learning outcomes and just to spend time with them. So it really needs to come from the top and everybody needs to be on board.
The classroom teachers, the special education teachers, the parents, any outside specialists that come in to work with the children, the teacher aides, they're all very much a team that work together collaboratively around each child.
Fantastic. What's your goal at the moment?
Support can be in terms of the physical resources. Firstly, if the child is disabled, needs to be able to get into the classroom, needs to be able to have desks that are the right height, needs to have some of physical resources such as jigsaw puzzles, Play-Doh, all of that sort of stuff. So your school needs to be supporting you and providing you with the things that a classroom teacher needs.
We acknowledge that initially it's going to be cost intensive, because that's where the biggest fears are initially. So we put some resourcing around transition times.
Professional development really needs to be encouraged in your school, whether that is finding out background information about the child that you're going to be working with, whether it is being taught different strategies to use, and whether it's just going to courses that provide you with more ideas and more resources also. It's hugely important that your school's really behind you, because that child does not just belong to that teacher, he or she belongs to the whole school.
How are you happy people? It's nice to see you this morning. Did you enjoy assembly today?
Yes.
Can you sit around and look this way?
Children with severe or very high behaviour needs are always going to be an issue, and there needs to be very strong support in classrooms where the children do have high behavioural needs. You're always going to get the teacher that simply can't cope that day, and that's just normal. And we have a support network out there to help the children that are in those classrooms.
When everything turns to custard, the teacher still wants to know that the principal is there to come in and support them. And if there is a kid who is on the roof or up a tree or just been screaming for 2 hours, that the principal will come in and do the hard yards with them. And I think that's important.
You want to mix it round? Good morning, Super
7, and how are you today? It's really nice to see you. Let's have some fun today.
The benefits for the rest of the children in the class for having an inclusive classroom are just absolutely huge. You see the other children in the class develop some really lovely characteristics without you needing to explicitly teach them. And that's things like they develop an understanding for the child, they develop acceptance, and empathy, and they just, you find that they really enjoy the children.
Like that. With 2 fingers. Have you got your 2 fingers? 2 fingers. Yeah. Can you guys do your F as well? Awesome. So it's kind of a...
Jaden in our classroom, he's non-verbal, but he's very vocal. He makes a lot of sounds. He's learning a sign language so that he can communicate ideas. And some of the children in the class are picking up on that and just trying hard to learn it also.
You're making an R shape.
He's a lot of fun. He has quite a sense of humour on him as well, and the kids just love him. And again, they always celebrate the successes that he makes also.
Mostly one.
Rebecca, at first I didn't know what really to think of her, but after I looked after her a few lunchtimes, she's actually really fun, and I would say she's one of my close friends.
Maybe we should turn it on.
She really joins in, and we make sure that she's just treated like an individual member of the class.
She answers questions and asks them. It's not like she's not there.
She's just like one of us, really.
At the beginning of the year, the teacher needs to set up a culture that's accepted by all, which says that every learning need is different in every individual. That starts from extremely able students right through to students who need a lot of support.
The difference that it makes for the other students is they are accepting of everybody. They learn that even though we're different, we all belong to this class. Each and every one of them are a part of room 3. No matter what we look like, what we sound like, whether we're talking, whether we're using words to communicate, whether we're using signs to communicate, we are all room 3. To facilitate inclusion on a daily basis, I need to have a good understanding of the children who are in my class. I need to be aware of their learning needs. I need to have a good understanding of their condition. I need to know what things they need for calming, what things they need to help them with their learning, what communication needs they have. So really it's the background knowledge. Will, he's autistic. Since he started, we've set up his little schedule to make life easier. The first few days we didn't have it in place because we were still getting to know him, but it's much easier for him in the classroom now if he knows exactly what's going to happen. And we've got a communication book set up with all the different bits and pieces. So he can tell us his needs and wants, and we can tell him what we want him to do. Also the people that are going to be important in his day.
If you don't have communication, it just doesn't happen. And that's communication between me and the family of the child with the special educational needs, and also the other specialist people who work with that child. I find one of the best things personally with the children that I've got is to have a home book with the home and school so that I know what's going on at home and they know what's going on at school. And that way you can be given a little bit of warning of things that might not be going as well. If they'd had a rough morning or something, you know that you can deal with that.
Staying in touch and just making sure everyone's informed is really important, I think. Like some things that the kids enjoy doing in the weekend, they implement them at school because we've shared the ideas with them that they didn't know about before.
That's right. Yeah. They can work on things that are high interest.
Right, so say goodbye to Jenny.
In terms of classroom teachers, they've got to balance up accommodation of a child's disability while at the same time making sure that they are treated on an equal footing with every other child in the class. When you've got children who are, for example, on level 4 and 5 of the curriculum and having to adapt and modify that curriculum to take into consideration a child who's working on level 1, that's a huge challenge as well.
Awesome, well done. You can go for a little bit.
I have to have planning that reflects lots of different activities, whether they be oral, visual, written, manipulation activities, so that all children can have success. Lots of buddying up so that one child feels supported with the other children.
On a daily basis, I have buddies. The peer may be a much more able student, in spelling or reading or maths.
Boys.
They work on a specific activity. It may be 10 minutes, it may be 20 minutes, it may be more, but those tutors know they're doing a specific job.
The specific teaching strategies that we use for the children with special needs also benefit the other children in the class as well. The visual schedules, the explaining what we're going to do, the social stories, helps everybody.
Well done.
A lot of children that I've found with special needs need to visually see what's happening. And an example of that is one child who every day when he went home would forget something that he needed. And so we took photos of the items he needed to take home, his school bag, his jersey, his sweatshirt, all of those things. And now when he goes home, he goes with a buddy, checks that he's got all of those things, and then hopefully he goes home with the right equipment. But what I've found is that other children in the class are also using that system, and without me prompting them, they're going straight to it and they're checking that they've got all the stuff that they need. So the strategies that you use have huge benefits for the rest of the children, that explicit teaching.
If you put together the cumulative experience of these children from day to day and look at things like segregation from their peer group, being teased or bullied, not having their views listened to at school, being scared to speak in class because someone is going to tease you about the sound of your voice, being forced to sit behind a very large, noisy computer which makes you look different from everybody else. If you take all of those cumulative experiences, it comes as no surprise to us that impairment or disability is not viewed by these children as a positive part of who they are. And this concerns us because impairment is a reality for these children. And so the question that we have then is, how can schools respond to disabled children so that impairment is seen as a positive part of who they are? And really this is all about schools thinking about how they can respond to diversity in positive ways and give this message to all children that indeed, we are a diverse group of people.
We're long past the time that disabled children, young people and their families have to beg for their rights to be delivered. It's not about charity or benevolence anymore, being kind to disabled children. It's about people responding to their rights, which are actually enshrined in education legislation, in international conventions, and in the New Zealand Disability Strategy. Each school is required to recognise the rights of disabled children and ensure that their school is an inclusive community and that those children are a part of that community on the same basis as other children.
You want to create a place where all people are valued. If we're marginalised people with disability, it's probably true that we're marginalising other groups within our school community. When people talk about social engineering, well, so what? We've always social engineered. We're trying to create a softer, kinder, more caring community. And inclusion is no longer an option. We have the UN Convention on the Disabled Child. We have the disability strategy. We have a curriculum that states that schools have to be inclusive. So it is no longer an option. We have to actually make it work.